Sankofa Video Books and Cafe. I'm your events coordinator, Christina Joy, and we are here tonight for a very special event with Kwame Alexander. Give it up. Thank you for coming to Sankofa. We've been open since 1997, right here on Georgia Avenue, across the street from the illustrious Howard University, HU. I know that's right. Thank you. And tonight we're gonna have a very special kind of event. We don't typically have this type of event per se. It's like,
really?
Yeah, this is not from an author of your status, I would say. Maybe if somebody brings up a workshop or something like that, it's a little different. But tonight's conversation is about publishing and writing and all the things that go with making books. And obviously we're a bookstore, so yeah, a great place for this conversation. How do you get your book on the shelf? How do you do the things that are required for you to actually publish? So let me read Kwame's bio, even though it speaks for itself. I mean, you see 3 of the many books.
You can read my bio.
I mean, a little snippet, like Kwame Alexander is a poet, educator, publisher, 2-time Emmy-nominated writer, producer, and #1 New York Times bestselling author of 39 books. Including Why Fathers Cry at Night, a memoir of love in poems, letters and remembrances, The Door of No Return, and The Light of the World to See, 1,000 words on race and hope. I'll stop there. I will let you know, even though we all know it's crazy. But so tonight, Kwame's gonna give you all the floor, and y'all can ask your questions, and I will pass around the mic to anyone that has a question. And so, yeah, let's begin. Thank you.
Give it up for Christina Joy, y'all. How y'all doing? Good. It feels so strange and good to be back here. Y'all don't understand. I was here the day this place opened in 1997, trying to sell my books out of the trunk of my car. Aww. Just a poet who loved writing and who found an audience. And the audience was really supportive, from the owners, Hallie and Shrikiana, to the staff, to my friends, to other poets, to just folks from the community. A few of you who are here today, I've known y'all forever, and I'm so honored. And so the way this all came to be, I actually used to do these kind of workshops back in the day, and I would have to pay people to come. Like, it was like, please come to my workshop, because I really wanted to teach people about publishing. It was really important to me, because I grew up in a household where my father was a book publisher, so I knew a whole lot, had a lot of information, and I didn't want to just keep it inside. And so one of the things I've been thinking about recently is I'm traveling all around the world. I'm doing all these things. I'm living this writerly life. But it's important for me to sort of remember where it started. I remember the people who supported me from day one. And so this was sort of my effort, or my attempt at being able to ensure that folks who were where I was 20 years ago have the opportunity to be able to learn and get information that I wished I had gotten, that would have saved me a lot of time and a lot of heartache. So that's what this is about. Sankofa is a dear place to me. We actually had the opening right outside, the grand opening, and I was the host for the opening. And we had Hakeem Adebouti was here, Aqua Lynch was here. I want to say Sonia Sanchez was here, and just a lot of poets and writers and people in the community. Were you here?
No. 1997.
Were you born?
Oh yes, 93. Thank you.
You were 4 years old. I'm old. So I've written. My 41st book just came out. It's called This Is the Honey. My first 14 books I published myself. I had my own company. The first company I had, it was called the Alexander Publishing Group. great name for a company, right? Name it after yourself. And then I decided to change the name and make it more mission related. And the name of the company was Black Words. And the logo was a fist, a black power fist with a pencil through it. It was dope, right?
Still got t-shirts.
We had t-shirts.
Right.
You still got your t-shirt?
I got 2 of them.
Yolanda, you remember those t-shirts? Black Words. Black Words. So my first 14 books I published myself, and then I began to publish other writers. And then my 15th book was a book called The Crossover. And I ended up getting a book deal for that book. And that ended up being the book that won the Newbery Medal and then ended up being adapted into a TV show and it won an Emmy Award. So I've done it all. I've self-published. I started my own company. I published with small presses. I published with the Big Four or the Big Five, Random House, Penguin, that kind of thing. So I have a plethora of information. So we're just gonna get into it. We're gonna start by y'all just telling me who you are and why you're here, and just make it quick. Just speak into the mic and pass it around. We'll start right here.
Now I'm regretting sitting here. Hi, I'm Johari, and I love words. I love how they come together and become art. So that's why I'm here.
Got it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jose. I'm here to support her. I think she's a great writer, and I tell her that all the time. I just think she needs to focus and rein it in. So
Focus and rein it in.
that's what I tell her. So
Beautiful.
Hi, I'm Vicky, and I spent 14 years, and now I'm ready to show my novel, and I'm here to see what do you suggest, and can you tell us about agents and publishers? What can you really tell us, and should we self-publish?
Great question. So, we're gonna get into it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can pass the mic. Agents and publishers. So, agents are the middle people. Okay, they're the liaisons that connect you with the publishers. The best way to find an agent, to secure an agent, to get referred by a friend who already has an agent. Oh, you should go see my friend. You should submit to my agent, and your friend will make a introductory connection for you. That's one of the best ways. Another way, going to writers' conferences, where agents are on panels, or they're delivering presentations. And a lot of times at these workshops, at these conferences, for instance, if you're a children's book author, there's a conference called the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, SCBWI. And there are a lot of agents there. And at these conferences, at those SCBWI conferences, the agents will set aside time to meet with writers. And they'll also tell writers, since you came to this conference, you can submit directly to me, and I will read it. So there's, a lot of perks for attending those conferences. And then, of course, one of the things that I did when I was starting out is I just sent queries to a bunch of agents. Will you consider representing me? And a couple of them, were like, oh, we'll read send us your first 3 chapters. Or no, we're not accepting, clients right now. So agents' sole purpose is, well, not sole purpose, but one of their major purposes is to connect you with the editors at publishing houses who will potentially acquire your books. Agents, when they're really good, they'll also offer a lot of guidance and advice because they want to make sure those manuscripts that they're going to eventually submit are in tip-top shape. I happen to have an agent who's involved in every aspect of my business. She has marketing ideas that she makes sure she conveys to the publishers. She's involved in cover design. She's involved in every aspect of my books. Do you need an agent? Is it required? It's not required. It helps. I happen to be the kind of writer who, when I went to writers' conferences or I was out and about at parties, I would network and I would meet publishers myself. And I'd say, can I submit to you? Or I'd establish relationships. People generally want to work with you when they like you, when they know you. It's just the same in every aspect of business. So I would get to know a lot of editors and publishers, and so I could submit directly to them. One of the most significant values of an agent is that they know the business, they know the contracts, they know how the ins and outs work. And if you don't, which I advise you to do the reading, do the research to understand how the industry works. But agents know a lot about the business of it, and they are there to guide you in that.
Well, when you went, you told us that you got a deal.
Right.
How did you get it?
So I've had,
The first
all
one.
right, so this is the last thing I'll say before we move on to the next one. I've had 4 agents. One of the things that you were told as a writer in the industry is you don't want to be known as somebody who's hard to work with. So you really don't want to fire a lot of agents. Or you don't want to be known as the person who fires agents. I have fired 3 agents. I'm on my 4th agent. The first agent was a family friend, and she was amazing. And she could not sell the book. It just wasn't working. We worked together for a year and a half, and we couldn't sell it. And so it was I guess we just need to part ways. It's just not working. And we agreed to part ways. And then I got lucky and got one of the biggest power agents in New York because a friend of mine worked with him, and she referred me to him. She said, I have a friend, Kwame Alexander, he's looking for an agent. He's like, yeah, I'll check him out. So he ended up taking me on as his client, and he submitted a book for me. It was a novel. I'm not going to tell you the name of it because it wasn't that good. And HarperCollins bought it, and it got published. It was my first novel. It got published. And then I had a second novel called The Crossover. And I said, I really want we got to sell this book to a publisher. That's what it's called. You're selling it to a publisher. Please, we got to sell this book. He's like, all right. So we started submitting it. Over the course of a year and a half, he kept telling me there were no's. Everybody was saying no. They were rejecting it. It's called getting a rejection. So finally I said, and I wasn't getting any feedback as to why. So finally I went to New York to meet with him, which is where most of the agents are in New York, although post-COVID, agents are anywhere. And I went and met with him. And I said, what are the publishers saying? Why aren't they accepting my manuscript? And he said, truthfully, Kwame, I never submitted it. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, Kwame, it's a novel, but you told the novel in poems. Do you have the crossover here? Can you grab it, if you have it? It's a novel, but it's told in poems, and I don't think you want that to define your career. So I decided not to submit it. And I said, I appreciate it, and we had become friends. And I said, I appreciate it, but respectfully, you're fired. Because you cannot have other people in this business who don't have as much or more ambition or more encouragement or more support or more upliftment than you have. It can't be less. So I fired him. And then I got another agent. And within 6 months, she had sold the book. Now, the way I got the third agent is I randomly sent out queries. Well, not randomly. I researched which agents might work for me, who represented authors that I liked their books or were in a similar sort of vein. And I found 5. And I sent queries to all 5 of them. All 5 of them said they were interested. Then I had phone calls, and I had a list of questions I had to ask them. Do you prefer to communicate via email or text? How often are you going to be in touch with me? I had a bunch of questions, things I needed to know so that I could feel comfortable working with someone who was in charge of my career. So I narrowed it down to 2. I met with them in person. I was about to make a decision, and I was at a writers' conference in Connecticut, and this woman who's about 4 feet tall. Actually, no, I'm moving further ahead. I narrowed it down to 2 and chose one. We had dinner at a restaurant in New York. It's called The Nose. It's an Italian restaurant. great Italian food. I chose her. She said, I'm going to sell the crossover. Within 6 months, she had sold the crossover. I said, great. So the book is out. It's doing well. And it wins the Newbery Medal, which is the award for the most distinguished contribution to American literature for children. So now I'm like riding high. I'm feeling really good. And Hollywood's come calling. And Hollywood says, we want to make a TV show or a movie about your book. And I say, great. Definitely write this down.
Okay.
When you write a book and your agent sells it, their agent is selling different rights. The primary rights, which are hardcover, paperback, and then there are subsidiary rights, which are sort of secondary rights, book club rights, audiobook rights, serial rights, SERIAL, where excerpts will appear in magazines. So they sell different secondary rights. One of the rights that an agent never gives up to the publisher when they do that initial book deal is film TV. They never give that up. That is not a part of the deal because that's a right that you can then exercise and exploit later on your own, and that money goes to you. So your agent never gives that up. Okay. So wins the Newbery Medal, Hollywood comes calling, they want to make a TV show, want to make a movie. So I'm excited. I look at my contract. The agent gave up the rights. Just gave them to the publisher.
Wow, that hurts.
Oh, it was the most painful thing.
That hurts so bad.
And so you can't know what you don't know. And so I had a conversation. I loved her to death. And I said, you're fired. Because you can't have people around you who don't have your best interests at work. This is going to be your life, your career. So I fired her, and I ended up, my publisher ended up working out a deal with me where they gave me the rights back. I had to pay a little bit, but it was a challenging situation. The fourth agent, this was in 2016. I was at a conference in Connecticut. She was about 4 feet tall. She came to get a book signed. I was like, aren't you an agent? I know your name. Because I had read about her in the magazine. Publishers Weekly is the main magazine for the trade. She said, yeah, I used to be an agent. I retired 10 years ago. I said, oh, I'm looking for an agent now. And I just finished speaking in front of 1,000 people. I got a standing ovation. She was like, oh, really? We ended up talking a little later. She came out of retirement to represent me, and we've been together for 8 years. Your name?
My name is Sasha, and I don't really have a question about publishing thing. So I'm just gonna listen. I do have a question.
Okay.
Can I ask it anyway?
You can ask anything.
Okay.
Well, mostly anything, y'all.
So I'm writing a book, right? And I'm really a good writer. And here's my question. How do you know when you're done?
Ooh.
Because I just keep writing, and it's been some years, and I want to be done, and I'd like to publish it, but how do you stop? Like, I think maybe it's a series of books, maybe?
Right. So Sasha asked a great question. How do you know when you're done? I can say this now. I know I'm done now because I reached the deadline that's in the contract.
Okay.
But I have poems that I wrote back in the 90s that I go back and read that are in books. I'm like, ooh, I should change this. I could change that. I don't know if you're ever really done, but you get to a point where you feel confident that this is a good book. You have to be able to say that to yourself. The other thing that works is surround yourself with a group of other writers. Having a tribe, a writerly group that you work with, that reads each other's works, that offers suggestions and critiques, that is so important, y'all. I've had that, opportunity over the years to be able to, share with writers who have been instrumental in helping me develop my craft. And they're honest, and I trust them. And we sometimes get upset, but I know they have my best interest at heart. And so I think that's another way you know you're done. is that when you have people you can trust who read it, not your family,
Right.
y'all, not your best friend, you know, but you have people around you who are going to be able to say, yeah, you did something special here.
Maybe, it's okay?
Yeah.
Maybe I need an agent. Can you meet everybody?
Yeah.
Maybe the point is I need an agent because I was doing it all by myself.
Mhm.
And this is a true story. I went to a job interview in Manhattan on the Avenue of Americas. I think that's Random House on the Avenues of America. Anyway, I went to a job interview for an executive administration position in New York. I didn't get the job, but at the end of the interview, she asked me, because I had a chapter 1 with me, I just happened to have it. And she read a little bit through it. She's like, I'm going to publish this. So I didn't get the job, but she offered to publish the book. But by the time I got close to being finished, she was gone and the opportunity was gone.
Wow.
But that's why I'm asking, how do you know when you're done? Because
Right.
I missed an opportunity because I wasn't quite done. An editor was calling me and everything. And so I
Right.
need an agent, I think.
Have you typed the end?
And so many derivatives thereof,
Okay.
but it just starts over. So that's why.
Why does it start over? I don't understand.
Because I have more thoughts and I have more creativity. And I'm thinking it's a series of books. Maybe it's not just one book. Maybe it's a series.
Maybe
That's
it
what I'm
is.
thinking. I don't know. That's why I'm here.
Right. Yeah. Well, we don't know either. we haven't read the book, but we do know that thoughts, creativity are great. But do you have a beginning, a middle, and an end?
Yes,
Are your characters developed?
I did my outline and everything.
Yeah. So do you have a story that is complete? Does it feel like it's complete?
Sometimes it does. And then,
Anybody got any answers for her?
sometimes it feels like it's done and then time goes by and then I start
I
writing.
can say this.
Okay, go ahead. Pass her
I
the
am
mic.
not,
Ready.
Give the mic.
I say this respectfully.
Yeah.
I say this respectfully because I'm not a writer. What I do is that I kind of have a bunch of different things that I've written, whether it's stories or words, even scenes, because I studied script writing. So that's what I'm doing now.
Mhm.
So then when I just get an idea, I write it and I kind of say, this is with this story. But at some point, like he said, you have to have like a beginning and
Middle.
beginning, middle, end, and have your character develops a problem that they always have to solve and then the ending, right? So what I do is like, okay, which fits best or what idea fits best with this one and then finish that one. Because you can always create more. You don't have to, like when I started doing, saying to myself like, oh my gosh, this feels like overwhelming to finish a book or a feature film. But if I do shorts, or if I do poems, or if I do short stories, it doesn't feel like it's gonna never end,
Okay.
you know?
Okay,
Yeah.
try that.
Yeah, well, maybe that'll help, but yeah, that's a tough one. All right, we're gonna switch it up a little bit. We're going straight to the back.
Thank you.
We're going straight to the back with the young lady with the beautiful hair and the necklace. Yeah, I see you. Yeah, you looking around as you. No, right next to you. Yes. We're just introducing ourselves and asking your question about what you want to know. Welcome.
Thank you for coming and sharing with us. My name is Sheena, and I guess one of my questions is, what are agents looking for? I guess how do you know if you're good enough for representation yet?
Right. What are agents looking for? If you go on the websites of different agencies, literary agencies, and you look at the staff, the different agents, the agents will tell you what they're looking for. I'm looking for romance. I'm looking for literary fiction and poetry. I'm looking for children's middle grade novels and picture books. They will tell you literally what they are looking for. And what was the second part of your question?
I guess in terms of your talent or so I got some advice some years ago when I was writing something. I used to work with someone that had a friend in publishing, and they kind of rejected me because at the time I didn't have a big social media following. So I don't know if nowadays that's still like part of the equation, whether you're investable or not. That's not fair, but what do they want?
Yeah, that's a good question. Publishing is going through a real tumultuous sort of transition right now in terms of what do they want. I think for a long period of time, your social media presence could help your case. Absolutely. The more followers you got, that could translate potentially into dollars for them from a marketing standpoint. So I think, yeah, it's a tough question to answer because publishing is changing so much. But I would say this: write a really good book. Look at the other books that are in the market that are similar to yours in terms of theme or topic. Get out and about in venues like this where you can make yourself known physically and virtually. Yeah, I think the first step though is write a really good book.
Thank you.
You got it. In the back with the phone. Yeah, I see you. What's your name and what's your question?
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I was just wondering about your experience with young writers and workshopping. I was a young writer at one point, and when we were workshopping our stuff, a lot of people just got diverted from their primary story. So, do you recommend workshopping your work with other writers? Or have you found that just diverts you from your development?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I sort of alluded to it earlier, but I think it really depends on you and your personality. I love to collaborate. I love to be in group settings. I listen, I get inspired by other people and their thoughts and their ideas. I don't necessarily accept them all,
Right.
but I love getting that feedback. I think the crucial thing is your ability to curate the right group of people. You want people that you like. You want people that you respect. You want people that you value what they do, what their creative sort of spark is. You got to value them. That's important. So your ability to curate that right group, I think, will dictate whether it can work for you. Because you can also get the wrong group. I was in a writer's group, right? And it was about 8 of us, and this was like a year before the crossover came out, and I've been trying to get in this writers group forever, but they were always filled, and finally they had a slot open, so they let me in, and it was great. And then the crossover came out, and one of the leaders of that workshop, she said, "I don't really have time for this. I gotta go do my stuff." And so she left, and then some other folks left, and then I won the Newbery Medal, and then they all tried to come back. Like, that's shallow. You don't really want to be here, and we ain't let them back in because you got to curate that right group of people who are gonna lift you up.
Thank you.
In the guest shirt, yes. I think they took the money. Sorry.
So my name is, thank you. This is invaluable information. I appreciate you coming.
Hold on 1 second. Christina Joy, we need the mic back. My mic sounds nice. Check one. We need the mic.
We're switching the batteries.
Okay.
Thank you. So I was just thanking him for this invaluable information and for coming out. So my name is Renee Africa. I'm a dietitian, and I'm writing a book for people who don't think it's possible to eat healthy, even if you're on a budget and can't cook. And so I'm here because I'm in the process of finishing up the book, and I'm just looking for guidance on finding a publisher.
Wow. Well done. A cookbook. This is a cookbook?
Cookbook
Slash
guidance on
how to eat healthy for people who don't think they can afford it. Because they don't want to have to just go to whole paycheck.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's crucial. So number one, cookbooks are a huge market. They are a huge market. And you're really specific. And I think that's incredible. I love this. And your hook, healthy eating Healthy, affordable eating. Wow. And it's not just the recipes. It's not just the recipes, but you're offering guidance and the why. All right, so what's your question?
So I'm in the process of finishing up the book, and I wrote a book proposal. I submitted my proposal to certain publishers.
Okay.
I got some rejections.
Right.
I'm waiting to hear back from others.
Right.
So just looking to glean more information from you on next steps, how to find a publisher, and
I love it. I love it. All right, so first thing I'm gonna say is, let me see your proposal.
Okay.
Let's see what you did,
Okay.
because maybe I can have some suggestions for you on where to send it.
Okay.
Secondly, I'm gonna say you said you got some rejections, some people you didn't hear back from. Can y'all hear me okay in the back? Rejections are a part of this, y'all. This is how the whole thing works. The rejections are going to swoon, they're gonna swarm around you. This is going to be your relationship to publishing, because the reality is you only need one yes. And so until you get there, you gotta have the stomach for the no's. And some of those no's are gonna be non-responsive. You will never even hear from folks. The crossover got 23 rejections. Publishers didn't think boys would read a novel told in poems. Publishers didn't think girls would read a novel about boys playing basketball. So they didn't think it would work. 23 rejections over 5 years. You gotta have the stomach to hang in there, y'all, and be persistent and believe in what you've done. Because if you stop shooting, you're never gonna make the shot. So the rejections are a part of it. I say, and this is me now saying it, but I remember going through it, getting those rejections and crying and waking up the next morning and ready to go. Allow yourself to feel that feeling, but then get up and keep it moving. Right? And if there's anybody who understands rejection and how to get up and keep it moving, it's Black people in America. So, y'all feel me on this? Your name and what's your question, sir? Oh, can you pass the mic back, please?
Hi, my name is Jabari. I'm writing a book on math. It's a math book. I started writing it in 2022. I already got a tentative title. I've already even done a tentative book cover. And it's a general purpose book on math I developed. And in fact, I got like 3 papers. After I started writing the book, I got 3 papers out of stuff that I developed in the process of writing the book. So I contacted a group of, I've identified publishers in the field that I'm interested in, right? And I've actually contacted 2 publishers, and they told me the process to send them the manuscript. This was in 2022. In the process of doing that, I said, I don't know when I'm going to finish this thing because there's some proofs I need to do, and I don't know when I will ever do it. So in that kind of niche field, how do you identify all the things you would probably need to identify to be able to get your stuff published for that little niche group in that little field?
I think the question is much more interesting than the answer I'm gonna give, but I'm gonna try. Who's the audience?
It's people who love math, but it's general purpose. It's not like you have to be a mathematician. So I'm writing it so that I'm a teacher, so I'm teaching the math, and it's proving a lot of stuff that they don't know how to prove, but I'm showing how to do it. So it's general purpose, but it's obviously for people who are, anybody who's in tech field who likes math, who's a programmer, that kind of thing. So you don't have to be math specific. Anybody in here could read the book and learn something from it. It's going to have a lot of visuals in it. and so forth. So it's not gonna be a lot of jargon. In fact, it doesn't need a lot of jargon. And so that is a general purpose book, but obviously, if you are tech, involved or you like math, that would be the natural audience.
So the audience is adults.
It could be from high school on up.
All right, so this is number one. You got to figure out who your audience is a little bit more specific than that. You got to, is it high school? Is this a high school textbook?
No, it's a general purpose. I'm just saying, anybody who likes math can.
Don't nobody like math.
Huh?
Don't nobody like math.
Who likes it?
Like,
That's not
no, I say that. Facetious. Everybody in here who loves math, raise your hand.
I don't, I'm just doing.
All right, so you saying those 5 people are your audience? Is that what you're saying? And that's okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we got about 50 people in here. So what you're saying is 5% of professional adults are your audience, and generally those you're looking for people, you're targeting for people who like math.
Well, actually, most of my papers the hits on my papers are mostly from overseas because American publishers or people don't like my name because it's too African. Jabari Zakia, that's my name, and they see my name and they see math, and it's like, what the hell does he know? But on my website, people who download my papers are mostly from overseas.
Okay.
So I see my ultimate audience international.
Okay.
Because that's where I see the most interest in my papers is international.
Interesting.
Can I say something?
You want to say something?
Really quick.
All right, go ahead.
So I'm getting into programming, and one thing I realized is that there is a lot of math in programming, a lot of problem solving. That's got me thinking, like you said, when I was younger, I enjoyed it, but I wasn't a nerd into it. But now that I'm getting into programming, I'm like, damn, I really wish I could brush up and like learn some concepts that I didn't focus on before. So maybe that'll help you in some way.
Yeah, this is interesting. All right, go ahead.
I was going to suggest there's certification programs for programmers. I went through some of them when I was before I retired. There's certification programs with different companies for programmers. And your book may be one of the types of resources that they could actually use, which would give you a large market, even here in the U.S.
Just to give you more information, I've already created a video on YouTube on my first big paper, all right, which has generated a lot of hits. And I've gotten into some good battles.
Okay, hold on. What's your name again? Jabari. All right, Jabari, I'm gonna ask you to do this for us before we move on to the next person. Give us the log line. What's the 30-second pitch for your book? Tell us all what it is. Take a few seconds to think about it, and then tell us what your book is.
This book this book develops the math that explains a very important oath proof that can be applied in general theory in different fields of math that is easy to understand and learn because it will be visually presented so that people can see it, how it actually works.
All right, I love y'all, and so we family. How many of us are inspired to buy the book based on that log line? That is not to say the book is not worthy. I'm not saying that.
We don't understand it.
But we don't understand it, Jabari. So in order for us to understand it, you got to understand what you're trying to do, who you're doing it for. That's the first step. There are huge markets for educational publishers, teacher-created materials, Corwin, companies that publish books on different subjects for professionals out in the market, out in the industry. There are also markets for textbooks, books for students. There are also books about things like physics and math that apply those topics to our lives. How do these things impact our lives? You got to figure out what it is so that you can convey it to us. Is that helpful a little bit?
Oh yeah, that's why I'm here.
My man.
That's why I'm
My man.
That's why I'm here because
Word.
I know it's interesting to me.
Right.
I'm a black nerd, so,
Hey, look.
so I know 99.99% of black people wouldn't think about it, but there are a lot of, like I said, a lot of people in the tech fields. Like I said, I'm already getting feedback. It's not going to be probably brought mostly by these black people in this country. But
I wouldn't say that, Jabari. Don't limit yourself.
well, I'm not saying it won't, but I'm just saying that this reaction doesn't faze me because I'm used to it.
Okay.
I'm used to it.
All right.
I'm not saying that when I go to other conferences, the black people, are interested,
Okay.
but not just coming off the street.
Yeah, we're not gonna limit our audience and the potential. But I appreciate that. Now, one of the big things that Jabari said, y'all, is Jabari said, I know the book is interesting to me, but how's the book going to be intriguing and interesting for other people? So crucial for you to think about because you need both. You can't have one without the other. It's got to be interesting to you, and you got to figure out how to make it interesting. My goal as a writer is to make my personal your business. In the blue head wrap. Give us your log. Give us your log. Tell us your name, then give us your 30-second log line for your book. Oh yeah. Yeah.
My name is Eli. I'm mostly here to support my partner. He's writing a book.
Uh-oh.
I'm a college professor. I teach Black Studies, Howard grad, many times over. I really just struggle with writing, period. I think I'm traumatized from writing a dissertation.
Right.
And also having the desire to write a book that is not academic.
Got it.
Because your training is like one way,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
I would like to write a book that, gosh, there's so many books in my head.
Well, if you don't have it, you can pass it to your partner since he's
Alright.
working on something.
Yeah,
That's fine.
She does a lot of books. Hopefully she come back to that. My name is Kareem Latif, marketer, 20-year vet marketer. My book is really about helping Black people in corporate America find community and find therapy through the stories of others, and to help them build their mental health toolkit.
Ooh,
That's
you pretty much nailed it. Like we got it. We understood it. So Jabari, see what he did there? He just made it really succinct. It's really clear. We know whether we like it or we don't, but we know what it is. Okay, what's your question?
My question is, like I have the idea, that because it's so personal and it's like kind of triggering for me, it's kind of hard for me to like start the process and really like make progress from starting. So I'm trying to get some tips on like how to get through the writing process. Like what are some ways that people have found that's been successful to keep yourself accountable and on track to actually finish the book. So that's my big question.
Kneeling in the musty attic, looking for our old record player, inside cobwebbed milk crates filled with moldy textbooks, dissertations, and his old fiery sermons on cassette, next to a green milk crate of expired passports and credit cards, I discovered jazz for the first time, Duke Ellington's Heaven, nestled right between Nancy Wilson and Miles Davis, the three of them side by side, trumpeting a kind of sentimental wonder. It is up here in this sacred place where I finally find the melody to build a dream on, where I rejoice, where I realize that my father may not be all blues, where I fall in love with him for the first time. I gotta write a book and a story and an essay and a piece about how my father never said I loved you. I'm putting my business out there. Like I wanna talk about this because I gotta deal with it. And I wanna help others who are going through something similar. Ain't no formula for it, my man. You just gotta do it. It's scary. It's taking that leap. But ultimately, I am a better man, a better person after having written this book, this very personal story. You just gotta do it. If it's important, if it's of value to you, right now, maybe it's next month, maybe it's in 2 years. But it requires a certain kind of, it's risk taking. Nikki Giovanni calls it dancing naked on the floor. And you don't care who's watching. They can either watch it or they can go home. But you gotta do it. I don't know if that's helpful, but
That's real helpful. Thank you.
yeah. All right, in the back, your name and what's your question? Mike is coming back to you.
Which one?
In the hat.
My name is Jeffrey. I want to respond to him, his question he had. He gave like his log line. And I think if you start from like your log line, because I really like understood that book, even though I'm not in corporate America, like that relates very well to me. I'm a teacher, so I feel like I'm in that. But just like start from there and start writing your stories based off of each of those. You get like 3 points. I think writing your stories from each of those 3 points is like a great place because I can feel all the stories and hear all the stories that are coming from that already.
Yep.
So shout out to you for that. I can't wait to see that book.
Your name?
Jeffrey, sorry.
Yep.
I just published a book in December. It's a poetry book. It's just like poems that I wrote throughout, starting in the pandemic time, and just poems that just kept coming. So I realized that I'm kind of like, I write poems emotionally. Just, I don't know, they just come through those times. And I'm trying to figure out like how, like any strategies to like self-market.
That's the question, right? My first poetry book, don't Google it, y'all, because it was a book of love poems. It was cheesy love poems, y'all. You know, but I loved them. Don't hate, I loved them. And nobody knew who I was, Jeffrey. Again, I was in the backyard here helping to launch Sankofa. I was reading at different poetry spots. I was at Tacoma Station reading poetry. I was at It's Your Mug at Mango's. I was all over the city just trying to, do my thing, this thing that I love. And I wasn't Maya Angelou. I wasn't Nikki Giovanni. I saw those women and I saw what they could do. I saw they were my North Star. How do I get there? And one of the things I knew about Nikki, because she was my professor in college, is Nikki, when Nikki stood up to perform, didn't matter if she was 5'1", you felt like she was 7 feet tall. Her presence, her voice, like she commanded the room. So I knew that there was a direct line between selling poetry and performance. And so I had to figure out, how am I going to get in front of people and perform my poems? Because that's the only way they're going to know who I am. So that's why I started going to all these events. So then, Jeffrey, what I did with my first book of love poems, I put myself on a tour. I had no money. I got on Greyhound Buzz. I bummed rides with friends, and I went all around the East Coast performing my poetry in churches, at schools, at metro stops, wherever, and selling my books. Because when people hear you, when a group of I just graduated from college, from Virginia Tech, and I was at Duke University. I was speaking to the Black Studies, the Black Student Association, and I read some love poems. In the Black Student Association, it was mostly girls. And so I read this love poem. Lips like yours ought to be worshipped. See, I ain't never been too religious, but you can baptize me anytime. And I sold a lot of books. So then I was I had flown to California, Jeffrey, to perform. Like, you got to be open to like presenting and performing your stuff any and everywhere, so people can know what you do. So I was in California. I was at a church called Maranatha Community Church, and Black church. and a friend of mine had invited me, and she had arranged me to sell books in the gift shop at 160 books. And at the end, the pastor, after the sermon, right before the benediction, the pastor invites me up to come and read a poem in the pulpit. And I'm thinking, I write really cheesy love poems. How's this gonna work? But I'm not turning it down, Jeffrey, because I know the relationship between performance and profit. And so I stand up in front of this church, and I have never been a slave, yet I know I am whipped. I have never been to Canada, yet I want to cross your border. I have never traveled underground, yet the night knows my journey. If I were a poet in love, I'd say that with you, I have found that new place where romance is just the beginning and freedom is our end. And the church was quiet until a woman in the back said, hallelujah! Jeffrey, I sold all 160 books. So that's my answer to you, Jeffrey. You just gotta get out and you gotta hit the ground running. You gotta do what Nikki and Sonia and Maya and Hakeem and Baraka and all these poets from the Black Arts Movement. You gotta do what they did, which is they got out and they performed. Who's next? Here we go. Your name and your question.
My name is Nathan. My question is, how do you put your cadence, when you're writing poetry, how do you put it on paper so it's still, like when you're reading it, it still sounds, the words rhyme and, the pauses and things like that. How do you put it on paper so that it still makes sense when you read it?
I do. I love that question. So you write poetry.
Yeah.
I think, Cadence, you gotta, when you're writing, or at least when I'm writing, I'm reading out loud. I gotta hear it. How does it sound? Because the rhythm is so important. The repetition is so important. The figurative language is so important. I gotta hear how all these things go together. I gotta see how they work on the page, and I gotta hear how they work on the stage. Both of those things have to happen. So by saying it out loud is one of the ways that it works for me.
Yeah. I mean, mine is, spoken word, but I want to put my poems into a book.
Right.
But I'm worried when they read it,
Okay, I see. So two things I'll say. One is, so in the crossover, there's just one poem. I'm at the top of the key. I'm moving, I'm grooving, I'm slipping, I'm sliding. So I had all these movement things. So what I would do is, like when I wrote the word slipping, I would have the words, or sliding, I would have the words sliding down the page diagonally. I would play with the visual format so that when you read it, you'd be like, okay, well, how am I supposed to read this and give a second thought to how they're gonna sound? So I think that's one thing. The second thing I say is, do you read a lot of poetry?
books that are just sitting there at the moment.
Okay.
I know I need to.
Not that you need to.
Research.
You must. You must. Especially if you're considering publishing a book of your poems, you have to be familiar. You have to become familial with the poets who come before you, with the poets who are writing now. Immature writers imitate. Mature writers steal. The way we learn how to write is by reading other people. That's it. You must, Cadence, do not come back in here next time. And you ain't, Christina Joy, pull a couple poetry books, because Cadence gonna buy some books, so I'm gonna buy one for her. But this ain't gonna work. Thank you. Thank you, Cadence. All right, we need the mic up to the brother up here. We'll get you next in the back, okay? Right here, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Greg. Well, first, I just want to say, I gotta give you flowers, brother, because, I'm a teacher, and in our 8th grade class, we read the crossover. My sons read the crossover. I want to say that is an amazing book. That transcends age. It's not just for teens and kids, but it really is a powerful piece. So the poetry side, I'm not here necessarily for a question. I'm really here because I just wanted to see you in person because I'm a big fan of the book. Thank you for your gift. And you did prove that, like in our classroom, we had young ladies and young men, and they all connected with the book the same way. And so what it inspired me to do is to basically like figure out how to tell my own story, right? And so with that, like the poetry piece is super important, and I love the fact that like you put different like modes of poetry, from like a list poem to a definition poem to a free verse to an ode. And so you're right, like that variety is like really inspiring in terms of like how we can connect as readers and like visualize. And so like my question is, as I think about like how I tell my own story, what are the pros and cons of like self-publishing?
Yeah, pros and cons, that's a great question. So like I told you all, I self-published my first 14 books. And you could not tell me that I was not the man. I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I had complete control over every aspect of publishing, from the covers, to what I wrote about, to how I marketed it, I owned it. It was 100% mine. So having that sort of control over your creativity and not having someone else having any influence is everything. Is everything. And it's why I've gotten into so much trouble with my publishers now, because I maintain that mindset even though other people are now publishing my books. And so, like, oftentimes my publishers will say, "Oh, Kwame's going rogue again." But I still have that sort of independent way of thinking. I know what's best for me better than anyone, because I know me better than anyone. So having that control is everything. On the flip side, publishing is expensive. It can be expensive. And if you're trying to do it full time, which is what I was trying to do, I was not very successful. There were years where I didn't have a job. My job was to publish my books, and I had a family, and there were some sacrifices that were made. Some didn't work out very well. So the fiscal part of it can be extremely challenging. So you got to kind of pick and choose. You know what? There came a time where I realized, okay, well, Kwame, you're gonna have to work a full-time job and self-publish. Okay, and that was challenging. That was taxing. But I believed in my work being out in the world so much that I had to do it. So there are a lot of pros and cons to it. I like to advise people to do it, at least do a book yourself. At least self-publish a book, because you learn all the ins and outs of it. And so when you end up presumably hopefully working with a book publisher, you're not going in blind. You kind of understand how this works. Human beings will try to take advantage of you because that's what human beings do. And you can't know what you don't know. So learn everything you can about publishing before you get into this market. If you're doing a cookbook that has some guidance and essays and so forth in it, you should know the cookbook market. You should know that market really well before you go into it. In the back with the yellow head wrap.
That was good.
So first of all, thank you for sharing your creativity, not just your writing, but this too. Creativity is an outward thing. I don't understand selfish artists. So you not just giving us your words, but this teaching moment, greatly appreciated. Thank you. And I have a comment that leads to my question. My comment is for the woman in the blue head wrap, the gentleman beside her, and the brilliance that I know, love, and respect to be Jabari. I have sometimes too creative of a mind, and I know not everyone is a writer, and not every writer knows how to start. Not every writer knows how to continue. particularly if you're talking about something technical rather than fiction or poetry or anything like that. What I have done over time, and this is sparingly, is I've written content for a couple of friends' websites. I've helped friends who had an idea but didn't know how to really get it on paper, pull it out better, so they could get it down on paper, and then they went off on that. What my question therefore is, how do I use that type of idea? And I have my own ideas for books and being an author myself. You know, I have a publishing, a poetry book out. But how do I use that skill of helping others and get into ghostwriting?
Great question. Did you say your name?
Sorry, my name is Nkechi.
Nkechi, and have you ghostwritten before?
No, I'm published twice. I was part of an inspirational series in the late 90s, one of 10 authors in a 10-series book. And I have my poetry book published here in DC as a chapbook.
Okay. And so what kind of books do you want to ghostwrite?
Poetry and inspirational fiction, because that's what I'm writing.
Okay, so this is probably the poetry snob in me coming out. But ghostwriting poetry is an oxymoron. You can't ghostwrite my heart.
You're right.
That's how I feel about it.
You're right.
If you figure out a way to do it, let me know. You might be on to something.
Yeah, I should say poetry is one of my interests in
Got it.
writing, not
Got it.
necessarily
Ghostwriting. Inspirational fiction.
Yes.
Love it. Oh, let's not talk about that. Don't start, man. Sorry, don't start, man. Have you ever written an inspirational novel?
My original inspirational book that I wanted to write has now turned into a 5-book series. I'm writing that.
Okay. Have you finished it?
No.
Okay.
No.
So let's start there. Finish the novel. Because that's going to be your credentials to show that you can write an inspirational novel. If you want to get clients, if you want other writers to trust you, they got to know that you've done it. And not just done it, but you've written and published it. So I would say start there. And much in the same way that you are providing the services that you're providing for other writers now, you would market yourself to the same writers or in the same manner. Whether it's digitally, whether it's making an announcement at events like this. That's my answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome, which brings up another point, y'all. With all these writers here, there may be the beginnings of little mini writers groups in here. You may have heard something from somebody said, oh yeah, I want to work with him. Oh yeah, I want her in my group. So make those connections. And before I even forget, before y'all leave, look, if everybody buys one book, not just one of my books, y'all can buy my books, but not just one of my books, but everybody just try to, we in a bookstore. They a business. All right, next question right here. Say your name right here and what's your question? And, yeah, right there.
Hi, my name's Dawn, and I'm a former journalist. I do public relations and marketing now. I just completed a picture book that I brought with me.
Uh-oh.
So I would love for some insight on
Really?
it. I can give you.
All right, Dawn, come up here.
Oh no.
Bring your pictures up, come up here. All right, come have a seat. Give it up for Dawn, y'all. All right, Dawn. We are your children.
Okay.
You're going to do a quick read aloud for us. You don't have to read the whole book, but you can read. Well, how long is it?
It's like 876 words.
Let me see. Yeah, read, don't read it all, but read to a natural stop,
Okay,
okay? To where it feels okay to stop,
okay.
all right?
Glasses off, can't see. Okay, the title and everything, a potential title, it's called The Grip.
The what?
The Grip.
The grip, the grip, all right?
Hey, cool cat, let me teach you how to dap. Let me show you how to rap. Let me do just that. I'm a pro at the flow. My name is D'Angelo. I make words grow, and I learned it from my bro. Well, actually, my cousin. We sit and have a discussion about all of the ways we play the percussion. I like to beat, and he likes to pound. Together, Micah and I make a funky sound, and then I have rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat, whatever, the sounds of the drums. Feel the vibration of our melody, loud and bold. We bring that fire, never cold. Now you've been told, now you've been shown. We have style and finesse. We know how to dress. But the real feather in our cap, today I learned how to dap. Dapping will teach you about life, Micah says, about brotherly love, about connection and friendship, about the cool way to hug.
All right, so I'm gonna give you my feedback, and we'll take some feedback from the audience. Dawn, this is your writers group right now.
Okay.
Dawn. And if you're in a writers group, like this is gonna be a model for how you interact with each other, so everyone feels love, they feel that spirit. Dawn, that was brilliant. First of all, you got something there that I was seeing the images, and then the other thing is, I haven't seen any picture books where people are talking about dapping, like just explaining that or showing that. That's beautiful.
It has a cool history.
Oh, I'm sure, and you're gonna talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
Oh.
About the history.
Oh, I love it.
Goes back to the Vietnam War.
That would
Go back to the Vietnam War. Oh, so I think Dawn, I think you are onto something. You just read the first, quarter of the book. I would say that maybe look at the pacing seems great, but maybe look at some of the rhymes.
Okay.
Most of the rhymes seem like they were just really interesting and original. A couple of them seem forced.
Okay.
Like yeah. The idea is we want to be a little bit surprised by the rhyme. Sometimes we can have some rhymes that we expected. That's cool because then kids can sort of they can sort of use that part of their brain. But look at the forced rhymes and make sure that you don't have rhymes that
are not effortless.
Absolutely. Thoughts from the group? They can just scream it out.
I thought it was awesome. I thought it was extremely creative how you made something so everyday and mundane seem so poetic and beautiful and
right.
eloquent. And it was just awesome. It was just different. I like different. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you for that. I'll tell you that I have a son who's 11. He'll be 12 this year. And it was a true story. Like he actually learned how to dap one day. And I thought my journalism hat was like, that's kind of cool. Like my nephew taught him how to dap. He was like, okay, young blood. Oh, I'm sorry. He's like, okay, young blood, it's time to learn how to dap. And so he's actually teaching them in my family room. And I'm like, this is interesting. So then when I started really researching what the dap is and how it came about is when I found out, like, wow.
How did it come about?
Yeah.
First of all, I sell a lot of books. I sell a lot of kids' books. I sell all types of books. I've never heard of that.
Right.
And that we don't have a lot of mundane things in our children's books. We don't.
Yeah, it's all very
it's all very drama, Black Power,
yeah.
And we in the resistance,
right?
But it's like we 5. Come on, like
right.
can we
dap.
just play? Like can we dap?
And plus it's become so like universal, like President Obama daps, like world leaders
Yeah.
and company leaders.
Love it. Have you written? Go ahead.
No, I think it's great because I love books that would tie in like the culture, the history, but also give children some rhythm because they like to repeat.
Right.
I could see like my daughter wanting to hear that book every single day over and over and
Right.
over again, and also it gives them something physical to do. There's social emotional learning, like the brotherly love and how to show that for little boys, and it's
You got a hot
it's all
book.
good there.
All right, now somebody give her something. Somebody give her something that is more critical. Try that.
I think initially, what I was trying to figure out is like, how are you going to position it? Are we talking about musicians, or are we talking about like children? You know what I mean? So that wasn't like as clearly defined, because it was almost like a shift when you went from like the music side, the sounds and the drumming, to basically the dap. And so I was wondering if there's another way that you can, well, not a way, you just kind of tweak how you introduce this concept of the dap.
That's brilliant. Because I thought something very similar when we went from the music, and then there was a rhyme about dress to impress. I was like, we talking about clothes? Where we at now? So that's interesting. Yeah. So have you read a lot of picture books?
I read a ton of picture books, a ton of yours.
Kate, did you hear this?
Ton of your picture books. I've been emailing her. I used to work with Nick Childs.
I love it.
The ledger, so I
Oh, Dawn, you're the real deal.
I try to be.
So where are you? Is this the first draft?
This is the first draft.
So you're still working it?
No, well, I shouldn't say it's the first draft. I've actually sent it to, I was trying to send it to you actually, but I sent it to a friend who's written books to send to her agent. So I've actually sent it out. So I guess it's not the first draft.
Have you
I've
gotten?
been working on it for like 2 years.
Have you gotten feedback?
Not yet. Not yet.
Got it.
I just sent it out like a week ago.
Got it. So without having read the whole book, my only thought is going to be, you said 800 words?
876. Is that too long?
It might, well, it's not too long. It depends. Can you keep that rhythm and that interesting rhyme and that story going? But in my mind of mine, I kind of see it in a 400 to 500 range. I say try reducing it. See if you can decrease the word count.
Okay.
And still keep the same energy going. But go ahead.
I just have a question. So have you considered, because I'm actually thinking about like kind of how it progresses, have you considered like introducing like the piece about the dap and then transitioning that to the musical or those nuances of the dap, that rhythm and different nuances?
I did, and I haven't been able to work that out. I did think of like starting with the dap, you mean, and then kind of working into, I was literally like kind of just observing my son and his older cousin, and that is how they interact. My son's a drummer, and like they're beating the drums, they're playing basketball, they're making up raps and all of that. And then literally one day he was like, okay, let's rap. It's a time for you to learn how to dap. And so they worked on this handshake and their own unique handshake for a few minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of told it the way I saw it, but I think that does make sense to start with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm piggybacking off everyone. Just kind of like work on the transition. And what can be helpful, even if it's a rhyme, you just write like an outline of the sequence that you think would be best. And then that way you could get the transition, whether it's like you talk about the music and then how does the music go to dressing. Like, I like, because either it's like, like musicians dress to impress, and then I'm just saying.
That could be part of the forced rhyme.
Yeah.
So maybe that doesn't fit. So
There's a really good book. Hopefully you have it here because Dawn should buy it. It's called Kicks. It's by Van Garrett. And it's about sneakers.
Oh, I saw the movie. Is that, don't they have it?
No, that's a different one. That's a different one.
That's a different one.
But this is a picture book, a rhyming picture book called Kicks. Y'all give it up for Dawn. All right, we got time for 2 more questions, y'all. Right here. Okay. Your name and your question.
My name's Les Shockley. Glad I made it. Drove in from Reston, and it's great being here.
My hometown.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That would be the second point of my question. But I've actually just finished my first draft of historical fiction, 125,000 words. And so my technical question is, if I incorporate, let's say, a poem from Paul Lawrence Dunbar, footnote, or are there issues with copyright if I were to insert a poem from a writer like that, or is that okay?
So great question. It was about if he incorporates a poem by Paul Laurence Dunbar in his historical novel, what are the copyright ramifications of that? And off the sort of cuff, it's probably in the public domain because it's Paul Laurence Dunbar, which means it was written at the beginning of the 20th century or the late 19th century. But you would just need to check it to make sure. And if it is in the public domain, then you can use it. You just have to give credit to it. You just have to have credit to it on the copyright page of the book. Whether you choose to have footnotes, that's a stylistic thing that you would be intentional about that in a novel. You typically don't do footnotes in a novel. Right. I've done it in a novel because it was a part of the whole character development. But you typically wouldn't have footnotes in a historical novel, only in nonfiction. But you would give credit on the copyright page.
Excellent. Okay, appreciate that very much.
Was there another question? Or you good?
In our area, are there writing groups or?
In
the library I know about.
Yeah.
But if there are other groups that I can come together and get feedback.
Yeah, I just moved from Reston, and I don't know of any writing groups. Is this adult for adults?
Yes.
Yeah,
well,
I don't know.
Actually, and that's sort of like this isn't a second question because I think it's something for teenagers and older.
Right.
And I want to keep it, let's say, clean enough so that it's appropriate age.
Yeah, I mean, teenagers are reading *Secret Life of Bees* by Sue Monk Kidd. Mm-hmm. You know, teenagers are reading a lot of adult novels. That's fine. But if you're talking about 14 and under, then that's a whole different conversation. Christine Joy, were there any questions from online?
No, unless y'all want to say something. Speak now.
Unless y'all want to say something, we're about to go. Last question, make it good. Who got it? We done.
Can you explain how important is it to be like a New York Times bestseller, an Amazon bestseller? I asked because I have a friend that released the book, and she has a publisher, and I was on a conference call with her. She had about maybe 40 people on the conference call, so they all purchased at the same time, and then they all went on make like a review on Amazon, and about a week later she was saying that she was Amazon bestseller, and she's promoting that, which is great. It's great marketing, but I'm just wondering how important is that, and what does that mean? Is that to be New York Times bestseller?
I think Amazon and New York Times bestseller are two different things. I think generally they mean you're selling more books, because that's how you get on those lists. You're selling more books. The New York Times bestseller list is probably the most prestigious list in the country, and it's so prestigious that it'll end up on your book cover. It's in your bio. Typically, you won't see Amazon bestseller on a book cover or in a bio. The New York Times has a certain level of gravitas to it. So I think that's really what it is. But book sales, it means you're selling a lot of books, relatively speaking. Last one, in the lavender, purple, pink.
I know that you mentioned going out and reading your work anywhere. It's not poetry. It wouldn't be poetry, right? But I want to go by a different pseudonym for a specific book that I want to publish.
Right.
Until my children get a certain age, right? And then I can come out of hiding.
Right.
So if that is the angle, how would you go about promoting your work? To be specific, it would be short story erotic type stuff. That's why it's under a different pseudonym.
Ooh. You have a comment?
Hire a model to use their face to promote it, like somebody that's in modeling, like a model person.
Oh, because you don't want your face, your image associated with the book.
So I don't mind my face being associated with it, but you you mentioned, like with poetry, go out and perform it.
Right.
So like, I don't want somebody to be like, oh, let's go on live or throw it on YouTube, right? And then my children
Got
can
it.
Google me or
So-
something along those lines.
That's interesting. So I'll give you 2 examples.
Okay.
Zane
Yes.
and what was this? She self-published. She sold millions of books. They turned into movies. E.L. James. What was her name?
Oh,
What was this book?
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of
Oh,
Grey.
Yeah.
And for so long, for years, nobody knew what those 2 people looked like.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a part of their whole buzz. Who is Zane? Who is E.L. James? And so I think that figuring out what's sort of your spin, what's your thing that you're gonna do, what's your shtick. And I feel like when you're writing erotica, if you don't want to be out there like that, then you're gonna have to adapt some of those sort of strategies. Having never published erotica, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I'm not sure I know exactly how to do it.
Tina Marie did it.
Tina Marie.
Yeah, when she came out, nobody knew she was white.
Oh yeah, because Square Biz was off the chain.
Right.
Square Biz. You got a thought in the back? Okay, go ahead. That's interesting. Because with erotica, it ain't like poetry.
Yeah.
You ain't got to get out there and perform. Like erotica sells itself. As does romance and some topics. Poetry is the hardest sell, which is why the performance is so. But erotica, I think it comes with a certain level of interest and excitement and enthusiasm already. So you ain't got to climb that steep mountain that the poets have to climb.
So now that we're saying it, what makes me it puts me in the mindset of maybe doing something like what Her, the musical artist, did.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking about so have whatever my thing would be, where hers was the sunglasses.
Yep.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, look, this has been amazing. I started in 1997 here. I had been writing. My first book came out in 94. And to be able to have come all this way. And so I had to, of course, bring the Emmy Award to show y'all. I had to bring it. I could not bring it. But I appreciate all the support. I'm so glad y'all came out. I hope this was helpful. I hope y'all got some information. And maybe we'll do it again next year.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. But I really encourage y'all to support each other. And if there's some writing groups here, exchange information. And thank you. Thank you, Sankofa. Y'all be good.